How is it going, team? So, a massive welcome back to the Average Jacks podcast. Today, I am joined by the wonderful Kate Kavanagh. Kate is a sports nutritionist. Today, we dive into all things nutrition. We talk about Kate's journey, about how she came from amateur athlete to working with elite athlete, everyday people in nutrition. We cover a range of topics, all very interesting. It was a great chat. Definitely going to get Kate on again. There was topics that we didn't even scratch the surface on that I think will be super beneficial for people in their day-to-day lives, be that general population or be that, amateur athletes and people way up to elite performance. So I hope you enjoyed today's podcast. It was one that I really enjoyed and I look forward to hearing what you've got to say about it. So something that I always ask is if you could do me a massive favour, it's completely free. If you could leave a review on the podcast, it helps me massively and it helps the podcast grow. If you're interested in finding out a bit more about myself, you can head over to www.jackmckeown.co.uk. There, you can find out why I'm doing what I'm doing, more about my first book, Habits, Happiness and Health, why I wrote that, what it's about. You can see all the reviews of what people have written. And you can check out the Q, which is my weekly newsletter. It's a 3-minute read and hopefully gives you some inspiration, some information to create the Q of the new habit that can help change your life. We're proudly sponsored by the brilliant Viribus Strength. Viribus are the best apparel company around. They've got the best bags, the best tees, the best hats. Something that I use every day, something that I'm very proud to say that I'm in collaboration with. So if you're interested, head over and check them out at www.viribusstrength.co.uk. And if you like what you see, for our podcast listeners, we've got an exclusive code, which is AverageJack, and that will get you 20% off at checkout. So use that, get yourself some fresh new clobber, and help support the podcast and the guys over at Viribus. So, hope you enjoyed today. You know where to find me. See ya.
For the afternoon?
Yeah, I'm done now. Done now for the day and then for the weekend and then back in Monday.
Lovely. My stupid charger portal is broken. So I'm like holding, when your charger's like broken, you have to like
hold it in a certain position.
Yes. Well, yeah. Position. Stupid Samsung charger. I literally bought a new one like 2 months ago and they're like really expensive and it's gone. So
get a strongly worded email sent to somebody. I'm sure they can fix that.
But no, so hopefully that is all good. And I don't have any.
So if you do cut out, we'll know why. If you do just black out, well, yeah, it's completely fine.
If you clock out, it's because the tanning bottle that I'm holding my Samsung charger with has fallen.
That's fair enough.
Can you hear me okay with the speaker and stuff?
Perfect. Yeah, it's fine. Can you hear me okay? Just double check.
Yes. Sorry, I feel very nervous about this.
I was just going to ask you how are you feeling, because people seem to like always sort of be shitting themselves about it, when in essence it's just a conversation.
Yeah, no, I think I always get like this though. I remember even doing my first consultation with an athlete, and I remember just being like, oh my God, what am I going to talk about? But there's so much to talk about. You get caught up. And even now, even because it's my first type of podcast or like chat, that I'm like, what am I going to talk about? But, I'll be fine. I just need to remember myself that.
You've just got, I think inside, you've got so much sort of content in your brain that you just don't even realise. And then when you start chatting and these segues just start coming through, it's crazy. Because I remember like when I was in college and I did acting and that, if you can't tell, you know me, so you can probably tell. But you used to do improvisation workshops, and you'd go up and you'd just freeze. You'd be like, you'd be trying to say shit, and then like I remember having this tutor, and she was like, "You improvise every day. Everything you do is improvisation. So why are you now forcing it? Like, go up and just do it." And you're like, "Fucking hell, that's so true."
That's so true. It's even like public speaking though. Like I remember in college, I used to be so nervous about it. And like, your stuff, even if you were doing like your thesis presentation, you used to get so nervous about it and everything. It's
Mhm.
just you get so caught up in the fact that you have to do it in front of someone and it's this big thing when in actual fact, like, it probably better than anyone else. But it's a skill. I think it's a skill.
Oh, it's definitely a skill. Like I've said it before in
Yeah.
the podcast, there's studies showing, well, probably not studies, they're probably just people, like getting, people together and getting like a feedback of what they're saying. There's a word for that, and my head's gone, and I
Case
completely
study.
forget. That's it. Something like that, where they've spoken to like 100 people, and
Yeah.
the most reoccurring thing is like the top fear is public speaking,
Mm, yeah.
and it's crazy. I
It
think,
is
like I said,
crazy.
it is a skill because to me, like I'm not fucking sucking myself off or blowing my own trumpet, but it
Mm,
doesn't particularly bother me. It's something, but
yeah.
I think obviously that's through doing maybe like acting and like doing shows on stage and
Did
things
you
like
do
that.
acting?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Did
In
you?
college, yeah.
I
I
didn't
did.
know that, Jack.
No, I did. Yeah, I did. Yeah, I did like
Crazy.
tours and stuff as well. Like,
Wow.
yeah,
I'm
that was
learning
what I
something new
was
every
sort
day.
of. Yeah, every day's a school day.
Every day is a school day. That's
Yeah, well,
amazing.
that's what I did. That was like my what I did in college. What I thought I was gonna do with the rest of my life. But
Yeah,
shit happens and
I
things
know.
change.
But
Is
that's the
that it?
beauty of it.
Yeah, it definitely is. And sort of them skills now, I sort of sit back sometimes and think, do I regret doing it? Do I regret choosing that because I've not done anything with it per se? But the skills that it's given
Mm,
me and the
yeah,
transferable skills that it is into everyday life, like public speaking,
yeah,
remembering things like through line
yeah,
learning, stuff
yeah.
like that. There
Mm,
is a lot of transferable skills from it. So as much as
yeah.
people do take the piss out of me for it, which is completely fine, I can live with that. I have got some sort of positives from that.
Yeah. I could never dream of doing that. So that's actually really cool. I didn't know you did that.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
what's the? I mean, you say that, but like you speak to athletes, you speak to teams. You put
Mm,
yourself out there in like you said, a vulnerable, not a vulnerable position, but
mm,
a position where you are sort of the forefront of what people are looking at and listening to. And I don't think it's that particularly different. I still think it's ballsy to stand in front of the, and if not more so, because all I was doing was reading something that someone else had written. Like there
yeah.
was obviously things where you learn about the character, you connect to that character, you try and give your own spin on it, and you do research about maybe the location or the background of that character that you get. But again,
Yeah.
that's what someone else has written for
Yeah.
you. Like I said, if you're delivering your thesis or something that you've done, that's you. That I imagine is a much more vulnerable experience than me standing in front of like a few hundred people who were just there to watch something.
Yeah, I suppose they both have their own sort of niche side to them though. Like, again, with the kind of, if it's like a thesis presentation, dissertation presentation, you've spent the guts of like 8 months researching, reading, so you kind of know it in and out. The same way you kind of know a script in and out. It's kind of
Yeah,
like, right, this is what I've done, and I know exactly what I've done, and this is the findings from all my own work. So yeah, I suppose they're the same, but also you're right in saying that there is a lot of differences between the two. And then the type of information is versus, like, you're delivering a script versus you're delivering evidence, and then the way that can kind of go into future findings and stuff like that. But it is all about transferable skills. What you said, like soft skills, is amazing. And that is like something that you develop. You don't realize you develop until you do those experiences. So, like, for your example, you said acting, and you're saying, "Oh, I question, like, was it a waste?" It's nothing's ever a waste of time. And I think Nick, she go to college for something, and then she did something else.
yeah. She
And
went
like,
to do acting as well.
was that she did
Yeah.
2 years of acting?
Both thespians, Matt. What can I say?
That's hilarious. Why did
Mm.
that just go over my head? I just never knew that. She definitely told me that and it just went over my head. I don't think I'd forget that though. That's amazing. But yeah, you're right in saying that, like, the skills that you pick up in those situations are so transferable even to everyday life, whether it's Gen Pop, whether it's athletes, whether it's just your friends. Um, and even I see that now in the sense of like placements and stuff that I would have done in college. It's if you're doing a placement with maybe you view a placement with like the better team or like a really high performance team versus someone that maybe is doing a placement with youth athletes or like the local club, and like just because you're doing a placement or you're working with people that are maybe more high performance, the skills that you actually develop on those placements are going to differ how well you do when you actually are kind of qualified and stuff like that. And that's definitely something I learnt when I was kind of over in the UK and doing my stuff. It's actually like what you actually pick up along the way is probably more beneficial than the type of athletes that you're working with. Learning to kind of speak to people, youth athletes, or learn to speak with high performance athletes, it's all kind of different languages that you use and how you can approach them. And that's at the forefront of like any sort of good practitioner, I think. It's being able to understand your audience, whether it's from an acting perspective or whether it's from a practitioner perspective, and then deliver the information, whether it's lines or whether it is actual factual evidence. That was a bit of a
Yeah.
spiel, but you know what I mean.
No, that was great, man. I mean, you said something at the beginning there that no soft skills are a waste of time to learn, and I love
Yeah.
that. Again, I think that's very transferable into the niche that I'm now navigating myself in with like habits and routines. And
Mm,
there's always something that you can learn from something, rather it be positive or negative. And
yeah.
if you do it, you can always say, "Oh well, I've done it, and that was the experience that I had." If you don't do it, you'll never know. And I think
Yeah.
as cliche and as bollocks as that is, it's true. And I think I've said it again, probably said it loads of times, that most things that are are cliche because they're true and they do ring present every time you say them. So things like that. But I've just realised that we've been chatting and you've mentioned obviously about thesis and you
Oh yeah.
working as a practitioner and that. We should probably introduce what you do. So do you want to tell people a little bit about your
Yes.
background, where you are now, and what it is that you're doing now?
Yeah. So will I start kind of right at the beginning or do I start the last few months?
There's no better place in the beginning. We're here for
Right.
a while, so we may as well get into it.
Right. So yeah, I suppose when I was younger, date back to when I was probably 5 years old. It's when I first started playing sports. So started playing in my local GA club. For you actually would not know what GA is, I presume. GAA? No.
Is that Gaelic football or am I?
Yeah. Gaelic
Yeah, yeah.
football in Camogie. So that's the association. But so that's like an Irish sport. It's like the biggest sport in the country. So played that since I was 5. I was always really sporty growing up. Got to school. I was such a tomboy. Like I just loved playing sports, loved getting out of classes for whatever reason to go play Gaelic football, to play camogie, to play whatever sport it was. When I was younger, I tried everything: badminton, tennis, Gaelic, camogie, swimming, like everything. I did. I loved it. Um, so then when I got to secondary school, I was never academic in the sense of kind of regular subjects in school. So it's a bit different in Ireland. We do something called a junior cert and a leaving cert instead of GCSEs and A levels, kind
Yeah,
of the
yeah.
same format, but a bit different. It's a lot more subjects. I was never really good at anything. The thing that probably interested me most was biology, um, the how the body works, stuff like that. So all through school, I knew I wanted to work in sport. Didn't know what capacity that was in. I just knew I was good at sport my whole life. That was the only thing I was good at. I was never into musical theatre or anything. Um, so when it got to my leaving cert, I wanted to go into physiotherapy. Now, that physiotherapy is really high points. It's really hard to get into. So that was always kind of an aspiration, probably never a realistic goal. Um, So I did the Leaving Cert, did pretty average, didn't do great, didn't do too bad. And I got enough points to go to sports science in the university only up the road from me, which is amazing. It wasn't my first choice. So, as I said, physio, athletic therapy, that's what I wanted to go into. And the kind of more, how do I say it, more well renowned universities in Dublin. So, DCU over in the north side, you probably wouldn't know what that is, but one of the kind of bigger universities, I was kind of aiming for that. So that was grand. Got into Tala, did 4 years of sports science, still wanted to be a physio throughout those whole 4 years. And it was only when I got to, I suppose, my college university that I realized biomechanics, anatomy, sports medicine weren't my best modules in the sports science course, which was a big bummer because I had this big dream. I'm going to be this amazing physio, and I just struggle so much with those subjects. But that is the amazing thing about kind of sports science or these sort of courses, that you have a lot of avenues. There's pros and cons because it's like there's so many avenues, but at the same time, you can dip your toe in everything. But something I was really good at was nutrition. So I think it was third year, that was my best subject. I was getting really high marks in it, and I started to really enjoy it. And then it was only fourth year of my final year of college that I thought maybe I could do this as a career. Like, I really enjoyed it. I always kind of had an interest in nutrition. So from playing sport my whole life, I was a very sporty person, and then I was really interested in what kind of foods to eat around my matches. So I used to play a lot of Gaelic football matches. I never really knew what to eat, and it always really interested me how to kind of perform a bit better and stuff like that. And it was only really when I got to my final year, I had a really good nutrition lecturer, and I kind of was having a chat with him, got some guidance off him, and he was telling me how he kind of got to where he was. So he was a performance nutritionist, but also a lecturer. And I had a huge interest in that. And yeah, that's when I applied to LJMU over in Liverpool. And I suppose I took my love of sport and I took my love of kind of nutrition, foods, kind of stuff I was putting into my body, and combined the two. And then that's when I had a little look at masters. I was initially going to take a year out from my college degree, kind of take a year out, figure it out. But it's actually one of my really good friends. He had went straight into a master's, and he's the one that kind of said to me, you need to just do it. Go straight into a master's, because I was unsure, and all kind of roads were leading to the UK. And I was thinking, like, is that going to be a big step? I'd never really lived anywhere by myself. But John Moore's was just kind of the place that I knew it was going to be the right place to go. So then I applied, didn't get in because I applied too late and some spaces were gone.
I didn't know that.
Oh well. So didn't apply. So that was probably March 2022. So then I made this whole other plan. I said, right, I'm going to take a year out. And then I was sitting in work one day in the middle of June. I actually got a memory about 2 weeks ago, 2 years ago. I just got accepted out of nowhere. They just emailed me out of nowhere saying, do you want to come? You after getting a place on the master's course. So it's just funny how, like, you can make a whole new plan. So I made this whole plan. I said, right, I'm going to take a year out, do this, do that. To then, it's just so weird how the universe works, to then say, right, I'm after getting into this master's. It was a lot. I was going to America for the summer to travel and to work. So that was already kind of a bit crazy anyways. But I did. So then I went to America over the summer, came back, went straight to Liverpool in the September of 2022, did my master's in sports nutrition, which was amazing. One of the best experiences ever. I think out of my school years, my undergrad, my postgrad was probably my favorite because I just loved it. We had really, really hard modules, but I absolutely loved going to them. I thought it was so interesting. We had amazing speakers in the sports nutrition industry come in, speak to us, people that are working at top elite level. on national, international level. And we had never really had access to that in Ireland. The high performance sports scene in the UK is at such a bigger scale than it is here. And that was one of the main reasons I moved to Liverpool. And I went to the UK to get my master's. And then I went on and finished my master's last September and did really well, got a great grade. And then since then, moved
Very
back
humble
home.
flex though, because you actually got the best grade, didn't you? Didn't you get the best grade?
Yeah,
Just
I got the
just
highest.
a humble brag with just like, yeah. I mean, if you wasn't gonna say it, I was gonna let people know that you did. But like, sorry for interrupting you, but just going back to your point of what
Yeah.
you said before, that you wasn't academic, so when you
No.
was younger, and then met to top the class of one of it is notoriously, to my knowledge, one of the hardest sort of sports nutrition degrees to get into and to do, the
Yeah.
John Moore's one. So
Yeah.
what I mean,
I know.
that's mental to then
It's
think
crazy.
like you wasn't academic and then come in and absolutely fucking smash it.
I
Is
know.
that
I
so
know.
gratifying to you?
Oh, so much. Like, even me and my dad, we found my junior cert results recently. So these are the kind of exams you do when you're like 13, 14. We had some laugh looking at them. Like, the grades were just not great. And we were just saying how mad it is looking at those grades to top the class at a master's level. Like, if I went back and told any of my secondary school teachers that, they'd be like, what? But it just shows that if you are doing something you love, then you know yourself when you're in the right course. And like,
Yeah.
even I know some people on my masters were like, oh, it's so hard, blah, blah, blah. But like, everyone kind of loved it though, because we were all so interested, and it was such a small course. It's a really hard course to get into, that you're kind of grateful to be there. And
Yeah.
I suppose for myself, and half the course was international students, which is absolutely amazing. So I met loads of amazing people from all over Europe, from America, Mexico. But we were really, it was like that gratitude was even more so there, because everyone kind of knew how lucky they were to do that master's. Everyone kind of had applied from so far away, and I was now kind of learning from the best sort of people. But yeah, it is a real kind of indicator that I definitely chose the right career path if I'm able to kind of do well.
Yeah. Did you think as well, something that I've noticed when I'm speaking to people, and something myself that seems to crop up, is that when I do something that I enjoy, or, you know, like this, the podcast,
Yeah.
or it's something that I think I sit down sometimes and I wish, why didn't I do that sooner?
I
And was that
know.
something with you with nutrition, sport nutrition? Did you sort of have this epiphany of like, why didn't I do this sooner?
To be honest, no, because I think if I had taken that year out, absolutely, because in Ireland the undergrad is a 4-year degree, so I went straight from school to college to masters. And I think I was so grateful that I did the sports science degree, and I'm really grateful that I didn't actually get into a physio degree. I didn't get
Yeah.
into an athletic therapy degree, because I think I literally would have made such a bad mistake doing that. Whereas doing something like sports science, because it's so broad, you know, analysis, physio, nutrition, you've so many different angles, that's what really pushed me. As well as having a super lecturer that kind of had already been there, done that, and was able to kind of mentor me in a way. But no, I think I was it just happened in such a weird way, but it was definitely the right decision, 100%.
All the dominoes fell at once.
Yeah, and it's just absolutely mental. I mean, when I got over there, you know, it's like anywhere you move to a new city by yourself, you're like, this is, what am I doing? It's imposter syndrome galore, but you just kind of adapt really. And then now, like, reflecting back, and I even have a friend now that's going over to the same university to do the same masters, and it's nice being able to give her everything that I wish I knew when I was going.
Like a head start.
Yeah, absolutely. But I was
And
lucky that Liverpool's so close to home.
Yeah, I mean, obviously, well, it's a close flight, isn't it? It's not like close in mileage, but you just mentioned then about imposter syndrome and stuff, and
Yeah.
that's so interesting to me that even with something like going and doing your masters in another country that you can feel that sort of pressure from imposter syndrome. How did you navigate imposter syndrome? Because it's something that I struggle with.
Yeah.
Predominantly, it's constant. Like, it's always sort of second guessing and thinking, "Oh shit, why am I doing this? Should I be
I
doing this?"
know.
But how did you sort of work around it?
To be honest, I'd say from time to time I still suffer with it. So
Yeah, of
I'm
course.
still quite young, and you're working with top elite level athletes, and you're saying God is what I'm telling them, right? But it is. And like, the main thing is that you have given so much of your own time, so much of your own kind of out of hours time to really kind of look into these things. I suppose in Liverpool, how I went about doing it is I don't really know. I don't think I even have a secret recipe. I
Yeah,
think it was very much setting up a new routine. It was very much adjusting and saying, right, I'm here for the year. How am I going to kind of navigate this? Whereas it's making new friends, learning new things, and kind of just really setting up a new routine over there. Um, but it was nice that it was quite a small class, and it was quite a small cohort of people
yeah.
that stuff like imposter syndrome, everyone was kind of feeling it, especially when it came around to kind of placement time and you do go around. It was my first sort of exposure to high performance, so really high performance athletes. And a lot of that as well goes down to kind of reflection methods, just kind of going somewhere, learning something, reflecting on what you've done, and taking whatever you have learned into the next session. But even doing that from the start, it is a hard thing to navigate still, because I would say I am a very social person. I'm so lucky that I have amazing friends, but that was probably the hardest part, was going over to Liverpool and not knowing anyone, and then saying,
Starting
right,
again, isn't it?
yeah, starting
Yeah,
again, setting yourself out of your comfort zone. Because when you're living at home and you have your friends close by, it's like, right, I'll text whoever, let's go for a coffee. But there, it's like, right, I really have
yeah,
to
yeah,
put in the effort
yeah.
to make friends and stuff like that. But having that kind of close, once I established a good friend group over there, and once I established kind of friends within the course, and then external hobbies that I could kind of confide in, that were going through similar stuff as me, especially, like I said, the international students, it was great to be able to chat about it, and that kind of helps relieve the pressure a small bit, I suppose.
So going back to just before you made the decision to go to
Yeah.
Liverpool,
Yeah.
obviously it was super last minute
Yeah.
because they just sent you an email. I was like, see you in 6 weeks, mate. You're on.
Yeah,
Did
literally.
Obviously that's such a ballsy move to just be like, right, I'm going to drop everything. I'm going to go to
Mm.
another country. I know it's only next door, but nevertheless, it's still studying abroad. You know what I mean? And you dropping
Yeah.
everything, like you said, your family, your friends. You're losing that, what is a security blanket for most people.
Mm.
Did you find any sort of reluctance from anyone to do that and drop it? Was there anyone who sort of was like, do you think this is the time to do it? Do you not want to just wait that year?
Mm. Trying to think back, I don't think so, because I remember when I first didn't get it, I was so upset, and my dad and my sister were there to console me and stuff. And I think because I was so upset that I didn't get into it initially, it was like, this is something I really want to do. So because it's such a small course, that it's like, if you get in, you're really lucky. Obviously now when I got the email, I had to have a chat with those around me and said, look, is this feasible, not only from kind of like a psychological standpoint, but also from a financial standpoint as well. You really, like I said, I had this whole other plan of what I was going to do. So it's really going back and just readjusting and kind of looking ahead again. Well, I don't think so. And I think that's what I'm really lucky, that I have such an amazing kind of support network, amazing group
Yeah,
of friends. Everyone was very much like, no, this is definitely the right thing to do. And I think because it was so close to home, it was a bit of a no brainer. Now, if it
yeah,
was maybe a bit further abroad, a couple of hours away, maybe it would have been a different case then. But because I think the hardest part was just moving away for the first time. But again, because it was so close to home, it was just a matter of this is only going to be a year-long thing. Let's just go get it done and then come back. But no, I don't think so. I think everyone was fairly supportive.
That's cool, because I think sometimes even something I talked about on the last podcast with Matt was about sometimes you can be in environments where people do want the best for you, but they're scared of change, even if it's not sort of to them. And I think that's so cool that you've got that sort of support group where they were just like, yeah, go for it.
Yeah, no, I think so. And I think out of my sister lives in Scotland anyways, so she's moved out a few years. So it wasn't like I was kind of the first one to leave the nest. We've already kind of been through that, so the family is well adjusted. In terms of my friends, I think in saying, they'll probably correct me on this, I think I was one of the first ones to leave in terms of like emigrate. Now I have friends all over the place, but I think I was one of the first of my friends to go. So that was weird. That was a weird adjustment. But now it's such a normal thing that everyone's adjusting to it the older we get in our 20s. But no, it really was a very positive experience. So I am lucky that everyone around me was very much like, this is the right thing to do.
So going from that, obviously you've just mentioned that you have a fantastic support system in your friends, your family. I can imagine it was shit scary to, like you said, you mentioned it a bit before, to just go and have nothing.
Oh my God, yeah.
Do you remember what you did? Did you set anything out to be like, right, this is what I'm going to have to do? Did you have any sort of, not just academic goals while you was over in England away from Ireland? Did you have any sort of personal things like, right, I'm going to do this, I'm going to ensure that I do this? Was the things that you set out for yourself to, make things less scary, if that makes sense?
Yeah, so I think me and my dad had gone open to the open day a few months prior, back in the March, I think it was. So we really went to kind of scope out the city, see what the university social clubs and stuff like that is like. So I suppose when I found out that they had a Gaelic football team, I was like, amazing.
I'm sold. I'm there. Put my
Don't even need to ask you twice up there. But because obviously, like I said, I've played sport my whole life. It is absolutely amazing. It connects people in so many ways, especially a team sport. That when I found out that was there, and when I found out there were so many Irish girls already there, girls from Northern Ireland, so girls that were kind of going through the same thing, it did make it a bit less scary. Like I think on week 3 we had our first training session. Now in the first 3 or so weeks it was weird. I'm very much though a creature of habit, that I'll wake up in the morning, I have the same overnight oats, I'll do this, I'll go to the gym. So it was just a matter of bringing that over there. And I enjoy doing those things, which is super. But yeah, I think having that support system of a lot of Irish girls in the nature of sport made it really, really
like
easy.
Like a home from home.
Exactly, yeah, like a home from home. Girls that, like, maybe the few of them knew each other from home, but it just was that bit of, right, we're all kind of, no one is living close to home, and it just makes it that bit easier that everyone's kind of going through the same thing again. But yeah, it was just like, I'll actually never forget the ferry ride over. I was so nervous, and I've never felt anxiety like that. And I'm not really an anxious person, but that was next level. I'll never forget that ferry over. But you just adapt in weird ways. You really do. And I think the thought of it is so much worse than the doing when you're
100%.
living there. Yeah, when you're living there, it's very much, right, this is my circumstances. What am I going to do to make myself feel more at home? And then that's when stuff like sport, the gym, doesn't even need to be sport related. It can be anything related. But that's when all those sort of practices come into play.
I feel like sport is the great leveler when you're in an environment where you don't know anybody, or you you just turn up, like I said, you turn up to the Gaelic football training, and probably immediately within 10 minutes, you were speaking to someone and then found common ground with it. I think it's interesting that obviously I'm quite social, you're quite social, and we both, from what you've said, played a lot of different sports and a lot of sports when we was younger.
Yeah.
I think, I don't know what you think about this, and you can correct me if you're wrong, I think that you get so much, again, talking about transferable skills, how to just sort of communicate with people in different, because there's so many different types of personalities in teams.
Absolutely.
And there's so many sort of scenarios and situations where they can be heated, they can be quite relaxed. I think, it's probably the thing that I'd thank my mum and dad for the most is dragging me to, all the sports sessions that I, saw and was like, I want to do that. And like, all right, so we'll try it. But again, you just learn these skills of how to navigate situations. And do you think that's where you got your sort of, like, because mate, you are ballsy to do what you did. I think it's to come over and drop things and then not just blowing like smoke up your ass. It's a ballsy thing to do. Just completely essentially take a year out of your established life where you've mentioned things are going well. You've got a strong support group. You've got things you want to do, but you're just like, you know what? Nah, I'm going to go and take a chance. I'm going to go and push myself into an area that I don't particularly know anything about, and then going to go and chase it. Do you think sport give you that sort of confidence and then fundamentals to do this?
Yeah, absolutely. Like it's such a, like you said, it's something that just creates a community away from everything else. So you have, obviously, growing up, you have your school friends, you have your sport friends, but if you're in that kind of team like environment for so many years, it's very natural to just kind of go somewhere else and be able to kind of make friends a bit more easily, rather than if you were someone maybe who competed in individual sport, or you were someone maybe that did something else. It doesn't even need to be a team sport related, it can be absolutely anything. But 100%, I think I've gained so many of my social skills through playing sport. Social skills, friendships, but also communications. And I even kind of bring that into my practice, I suppose, because I have obviously played sport for so many years. I understand the commitments. Now, obviously, I've played sport, obviously maybe not high performance level, but to an extent, I do understand the commitments that goes into a lot of these athletes, and even athletes that maybe aren't high performance, but they just love what they do and they're training the same amount as a high performance athlete. I understand the time, the commitment, the enjoyment that goes into that. So having those, knowing what I know from a kind of athlete perspective, I can take that into my own practice when I am working with athletes, and especially those athletes that are giving all their time and skills, and maybe they have a full-time job out of it. So it's really benefit me in so many different ways. And I think, yeah, absolutely. I think that has really helped me a lot in my adolescent years, my childhood years, and now even to this day, I still play football. And I've made some of my best friends through sport as well. But yeah, absolutely. I think most of my people skills, most of my soft skills would have been developed from those years of playing in a team-like environment,
Oh, I love that. And I want to pick up on something that you mentioned probably about 15, 20 minutes ago. But you said about your own interest in when you was younger and fueling yourself around your sessions, and that's how you got this probably the start of your interest into nutrition and that. And I find that super interesting because I've played sport all my life, and fueling myself for sessions is something that has only come into my sort of arsenal and skill set in the last 7 years maybe, and that was more based around gym training, doing like CrossFit competitions and stuff like that. That was just because I was in a situation through great coaches that I had in gyms teaching me that sort of stuff. So for you to have that early on is brilliant. But something I wanted to ask you, as sort of a sports nutritionist and a practitioner in it, working with elite athletes, high standard athletes, is I imagine there's still people like myself who, they rather don't have that education, or they're very not a lot about it, very minute things. I think nutrition as a subject has a lot of like wives' tales and like myths and that. So as a sports practitioner, how do you sort of navigate that with your own experience?
Yeah, it's a really good question. I think the way social media is going nowadays, anyone can call themselves a nutritionist, and because nutrition isn't regulated by law, but so if you're a dietitian, that absolutely is, and you kind of have to be, qualified to call yourself a dietitian. It is quite hard to make sure that all the information that your athletes are getting is kind of evidence-based, up to date, when there is such a wide landscape of false information out there. So it is hard, but I do enjoy those conversations that I have, friends, family, athletes, that I've seen this online. Is this true? Or what's your opinion about this supplement or this and this and this? Yeah. So it is good to ask the questions, and absolutely I love having those conversations. I love having those conversations with my own friends, my own family, because it means people are there to learn. And I was only talking to someone about this the other day, like you just said there yourself. I think everyone to a certain degree has an interest in nutrition. How could you not? Like, it's what you're putting in your body every day. Food is everything.
100%.
Food is our mood. Our gut and our brain are so linked that how could you not know? Like, how could you not be interested? But it is trying to stay as evidence-based as possible can be hard, because the way that social media is going, the way that trends are going. But as I said, all I can do is whoever I work with, keep it as evidence-based as possible. I think it is important that if you are, like, I would never give information to an athlete, to a friend that I don't already know is kind of backed by science, has a paper behind it, or has been well researched. Even to this day, there's always new research coming out in all sorts of areas of nutrition. So you could be saying one thing one day and a week later a new paper has come out and it's completely contradicting what you said. So it is just important that for me to stay on top of that sort of stuff and educate as much as I can. So it does come with its kind of trials, and I think we haven't even probably scratched the surface. It's probably only going to grow more and more with TikToks and stuff and certifications, but all I can do really is keep my whatever cohort of athletes circle around me as up to date as I can, and that's my job done really. Is as long as they're getting the right information, then that's all I'm there to do.
Yeah, and it's super interesting that you mention social media and the impact that has. Especially, I come from a fitness background with my work that I do, and the nutrition that like I learned in like my level 2 or 3 whatever gym instructor PT thing is so it's like it's a grain of sand on the beach in comparison to like what yourself did. And Nick, that's how we know each other, he did the same masters. It's insane, you know what I mean? There's so much to it, there's so many layers to it. And even from doing a gym instructor course or a personal training course, people use me as a sounding board. And like, what do you think of this? And like, I don't know. Like, I know what I know, but I wouldn't be comfortable to sort of go and say that. And then it's even, like you said, it's even to your sort of, the standard that you're at with your information and your knowledge. It's ever changing, isn't it? Like you said, I think that's something that interested me when you and Nick were both going through your your studies and stuff like that, and you was doing something, and you do these research things, and then by the end it was like, oh, something changed. And you're like, what? Something changed? You just had someone in a lab like cycling for 10 weeks, like 80% of their RPE, and what? Something's changed. And you're like, yeah, something's changed. Science. And like, is that from your perspective? I think obviously assuming, and I'd like you to obviously say yeah or no, but I presume that there has to be a lot of ego removed from being a nutritionist, because you have to, like you said, then you have to be able to say, actually, I was wrong about that. What I read now, it's this. And I
Yeah.
think what you see in fitness is a lot of people are willing to die on their shield for
Yeah.
X, and they're willing to die on the shield for Y, and
Mm.
that's what gets them in these sticky situations. So, how do you not get caught up in thinking, oh God, what if I say this and then in 10 days it's going to change? Or do you just have to have the sort of the mentality of being like, you know what, I've just got to ride the wave?
Yeah, no, it's a really interesting question. And I actually seen something really interesting from a kind of online PT recently that said, I think she recently completed a yoga instructor course, and she said, this time I'm not going to kind of pretend. She's in her 30s now, and she said, I'm not going to kind of pretend I know everything about yoga like I did when I did my PT course. As in, you might have a qualification for something. That's, like you said, it's only scratching the surface. Yes, I have a master's degree, but nutrition is so broad and there's so many different elements to it. And because research is always changing, the main thing that you can do is, like you said, remove that ego. That if someone comes to you, now, obviously, the main stuff will pretty much remain the same unless there's some crazy new breakthrough research that comes through in the next few years. But it's all the kind of like smaller stuff like the supplements and all these new things coming out on the market that I can have a conversation with someone, but like I said, say, look, I think that's the evidence, let me go and have a look at it. Even today I was having a discussion of CBD with an athlete online, and it's, you can obviously recommend to an extent, but CBD, like for a perfect example, it hasn't even scratched the surface with that type of research, that there is some evidence there to suggest that it can work. So absolutely you can use it, but there's so much more left to kind of discover, and its actual kind of side effects and stuff in the long term. So it is important that you are able to kind of strip back, and kind of, even me right at, I suppose, the beginning of my nutrition career, that you can remove that ego, and you can make mistakes as well. Look, you can say something to someone and then you say, oh God, new research is after coming out this year, or a new systematic review has been posted that has looked into something at a deeper level. And like, there's a really good paper that's after coming out a few months ago, basically looking at kind of the strength, like, is there kind of, can you give an individualized approach for females and their menstrual cycle? So is there kind of evidence to suggest that different stages of the cycle has different physiological effects? And basically the paper said, no, there's not enough evidence. And like, before that paper was posted, absolutely, I would have always said to people, oh yeah, this stage of the cycle, you might feel this and this and that. So it is trying to kind of say, look, I once thought this, but you can't argue it science at the end of the day. And if there is new research coming out that has gone against what you have been saying, absolutely, you just have to kind of hold your hands up and say, maybe I was wrong. But it is like, it's like anything, no one's perfect. You are there to make mistakes as well. But at the same time, I would never give any advice that I didn't know was fact checked, and I didn't know that, yes, there's a paper on this and stuff like that. I think that is important as well, not to give information just because you think it's correct. Whereas if you can say, yeah, this information is the latest up-to-date research, whatever that is, it just also builds that trust between you and the athlete, or you and, if it's a Gen Pop, someone from Gen Pop, that you can kind of say, yeah, absolutely, I know exactly what I'm talking about. But plenty of room for mistakes, and I think that's the main thing. Whatever kind of area of work that you're in, there's always room for mistakes and room for improvement as well.
100%. I think mistakes prove that you're putting yourself in a position where you're willing to grow. I think if you was just sat on your hands and, you know, I think probably in your instance it'd be like sat on the fence, wouldn't it, like and and not actually putting your neck on the line for anything, people would be like, fucking, you can't get a straight answer out of her, like, you know what I mean? But rather than you go in and say, well, the science says this, I'm happy to put my neck on the line for this, and then you'd be like, look, I'll hold my hands up. And I think from just my experience in training in gyms, social media and seeing people, fitness is so dogmatic, like disturbingly dogmatic. Like people are like, this is it, this is all you need to do. There is no other alternative, and it's just not that cut and dry, is it? Nothing is that cut and dry, you know.
I know.
And like, it's so refreshing to hear you say that, and I hope people take that away and like, you know what, you've just got to have your fucking eyes and your ears open constantly with stuff like this. So like, another thing about sport, we've talked about the highs of it and like the positivity and that it has, but it is a pretty cutthroat industry at like the level of what you're working around and in. Does that ever concern you, or do you have to, again, going against what I just said, you have to be a bit blinkered and just focus on like day to day?
Yeah, I think it definitely is something you do have to be concerned in. Sport is, like you said, it is a cutthroat industry, especially at the top elite level when results do matter, and money is involved and stuff like that. So I suppose that there is a bit of a side that maybe it's not as stable as kind of certain other jobs that maybe you're just working with Gen Pop. Absolutely great. But when you're working within an industry where results are really important, yeah, absolutely. But you just have to be wary of that. And look, I think even recently with some kind of roles I've had, I have experienced the wrath of it. But look, that's what it's all a learning curve. It's good to kind of, like I said, reflect on that. It is something to kind of know early on. And I know we were even kind of told about it a bit in our masters. So it is nice. It can be tough when you are going through the kind of cutthroat side of it, when it's like, this is what we need and we need it fast. But like I said, you have to trust yourself. You have to say, I am the best person to do this role. I know exactly what I'm doing. And if it is a case that you're, whatever reason, cut or whatever, or you need to find something else, you just need to back yourself the whole way. There's so many external factors when it comes to sport. It's not just nutrition. It is so many different factors. And sometimes when one of them kind of falls, maybe other elements take a hit, but you
like
just...
a Jenga tower.
Yes.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You're a Jenga block in a big kind of backroom team. That if it takes the hit, absolutely, that's the way sport goes. You even see it at the top kind of Premier League level that it happens, but it's how you bounce back from it. And it's kind of like this, the exact same way in sport, how you would bounce back from a terrible loss. How would you bounce back if you've been trashed? It's the exact same way. You take time, you go away, you reflect, and then you say, right, this is what I want to achieve next. How am I going to do that? And it's just about taking learnings from every single experience. And that's the main thing I think I've learned since I've left the Masters and gone into kind of real world.
So you mentioned before about reflecting, which is brilliant. Sort of, you know, it's great for me to have you say that because of the niche of the podcast and the message that I'm trying to sort of get across with it. So, but then you also then was talking about telling yourself like almost like positive affirmations and things. Is that something that you do a lot? Is it something that you include in like maybe a routine of, you know, you got your reflection? Do you also like have positive self-talk? I'm different. I have negative self-talk as my motivator. So I'm like really harsh on myself, which I probably shouldn't be. You know, I know that there isn't a positive relationship with that. But if I'm in the gym and I'm slugging for a workout, I'm like, fucking do better. Fucking, you are being a bitch. Do better. And like, that's what I'm audibly saying that. Like, our coach walks past me, just laughs at me. And I'm like, that's what I need to do.
Barbell next to you, she's looking at you like, what is that?
Like, is this guy okay? Should we ring someone? Who's let him out? Yeah. But like, is positive affirmation something that you do?
Yeah, absolutely. I think recently, since I've left the Masters, the big thing for me was adjustment. And like I said, that kind of imposter syndrome that, oh God, I am still at the start of my career. I'm working with whatever level athletes that I'm working with. And you do need to definitely tell yourself, I'm good enough. I have worked hard to be here. I know my stuff. And positive affirmations is definitely something that I've brought in, I'd say, since the start of this year. And taking time each week to kind of reflect on the past week, what I've learned, what I can bring into the future, but continuously reminding yourself that whatever it is you're doing it for a reason. You bring value to the whatever line of work it is, or whoever you're helping. You bring value, and you are part of that cohort, or part of that kind of background team. But it is important to always kind of take time to remind yourself that. I think it's a very normal human thing to do, that we're so hard on ourselves, and we could always be doing something better, or be somewhere better, or be working with other people. But absolutely, I think that needs to be something definitely more talked about, I think. And I think the way, even from an athlete perspective, the way kind of sport psych is coming in now, is a big part of kind of performance, which is great. But definitely from a practitioner perspective, I think so. It is super important to not kind of be hard on yourself, and then remind yourself why I'm here, the reasons I'm here, and why you deserve to be there as well.
Yeah, definitely. And there is a study about this, because I've listened about it, but
Really?
they were saying, yeah, there's a study about like positive affirmation and in training and things like that, and positive self-talk. And it was 2 control groups. I think I've actually talked about it before, but there was 2 control groups, and they were doing a long distance cycle, some long distance form of exercise.
Yeah.
And it was like a blind study. I don't think they knew about each other. And Group A couldn't positively self-talk, like not audibly, like they couldn't speak out to themselves, but Group B could, and Group B had much better sort of, outcomes, results. Everything was better in comparison to the ones who didn't, were just like in silence, trudging away. And it's interesting. It's mad how your brain works.
It absolutely is. And it's mad how you can just go into overdrive sometimes. And it is hard to kind of bring yourself back down to earth and say, no, you're here and you're doing the right stuff. So I think it is really important that whatever level you're playing at, whatever level you're coaching, you're practicing at, that you do give yourself that positive self-talk. You give yourself enough time a week to sit down and reflect. It doesn't even need to be journaling. It needs, if it's a couple of minutes, to say, right, what have I learned this week? How has that made me feel? And then what have I achieved this week as well? And build on that each week, I think, because we can get so caught up in week on weeks that the weeks fly by and we haven't actually given ourselves a pat on the back for what we've achieved. So yeah, 100%, I agree. That's a really interesting study, though. I have to read that.
I think it's I think it was Chris. If you have Chris Williamson or Ali Abdal, I listened on their podcast, and it was they mentioned it to whoever they were talking to at the time, which was sort of a practitioner in that sort of area.
Nice.
But when you said then about, sometimes we don't take the time to sit back and pat ourselves on the back, I am the worst for that. But I thought when I brought journaling in more frequently, I found that helped massively, even with little things that you don't perceive as being things that are like, oh, well done, Matt, you've done well there. But when you actually write it down and get it out in front of you, you're like, oh, fucking hell, I've actually done quite a lot. It's the same with the to-do list. That's why I like, for me, introducing to-do lists, not only is it a motivator, it's very rewarding as well to finally get that last tick put off. So do you do anything like that? Do you use any of them tools of like journaling, gratitude journaling, to-do lists?
Yeah, definitely to-do lists. Absolutely every single day. I use one on my laptop, open it every single day, tick, tick, tick. Great. It's a sense of kind of gratification. I don't know if that'd be the right word, but accomplishment. Big sense of accomplishment at the end of the day. I use the Microsoft To Do app. I don't know if you've ever used it. It's really good. But it is something that you can just have there and you can consistently tick it. Once it's done, it kind of goes into your list and you can look back at everything you have complete over the last week, over the last few months. They all stay there. So it is a really useful app, actually, if you don't use it. And then I suppose gratitude journaling, yes, absolutely. I think I could improve on that for sure. Give myself more time to sit down and write each week. I know I did do that a lot over my masters and at the start, but the last little while I have been slacking, and I will do a lot of kind of weekly reflection in the sense of I won't write anything, but maybe on a Sunday when I'll sit down and say, right, what do I have to do this week? What did I do last week? How does that make me feel? You know yourself, Sunday every single week, it's kind of like a bit, oh God.
Yeah. Here we go again.
Here we go again.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, I think I want to get straight back into kind of where I left off. I still have the same journal for my masters. Like I went through one of them and I started a second journal, and I just have really slacked the last while, but it is so important, and it just really gets everything that's in here on a page and just kind of lets you just relax and just reset and
Yeah,
go
it's like
again.
a pressure release, isn't it? Like letting a little pressure at the tank and just making room for more shit for coming that you need for removing later. Yeah. So like going to just journaling and stuff from a nutrition perspective. Obviously, things like MyFitnessPal are massive now, like NutriCheck and things like that. But I mean, things that I've seen and people I've spoken to, like food journaling is massive, because I think as much as to us and like from a fitness perspective and a nutrition perspective, things like food trackers are just second nature. But I think I can definitely be sort of guilty of this, is that I sometimes don't realise that because I'm involved in this area, that people in that general population who don't have any sort of interest in it probably have no idea of what MyFitnessPal is or food journals and stuff. But it's so important, isn't it? I mean, I think you don't actually realise what you eat and the calories that are in it until you write everything down. And is that something that from this is where I'm going with this, by the way, is obviously you get general population who have no sort of education on trackers, food journals. Do you come across that with high level athletes as well?
Oh yeah, only last week I was having a consultation with an athlete in their 30s, never heard of MyFitnessPal before, or maybe they'd heard of it but they'd never used it, they'd never seen it, and they have been playing sport for years. I'm nearly sure they might have even played it at intercounty level at one stage, which is like national level. Never heard of it. Look, I mean, it's not the be all and end all, absolutely, but it is important when you have an athlete coming to you and they say, I'm fatigued, I can't get through the second half of a match, I'm having gastrointestinal issues. And then you say, right, do whatever it is, 3, 4, 5 day food journal. It's only when you have it, it's literally like normal journaling. It's only when you have it written down. The amount of athletes that I have come to me and say, oh my God, I cannot believe that's what I have. Or I can't believe that that's what I have pre-game. I can't believe that's what I have after game. And it's really nice in the sense that it lets them kind of figure it out first. And then obviously I'm there to guide. But it is a really useful way of, if you are suffering with any sort of fatigue, underfueling, GI issues, that doing something like that, it's like a reflection of the week before. But yeah, something like MyFitnessPal is great in the sense that as long as it is reflecting, but it also is, of course, tracking as well. So energy intake, macros and stuff. And that would be definitely more so if you are an athlete who is fatiguing, getting quite leggy in the second half of matches, that is a really useful tool that we can use. But I would never at the same time put full emphasis on you need to do this every single day. It's definitely not a necessity every single day, but if you can get a day or two that you do a rest day and you do a training day, you understand what kind of ranges that you have and build on that, and you kind of put onus on the athlete that they know themselves where's going wrong. It just makes it a bit easier, and you're kind of they're getting educated at the same time, rather than you just saying you need to do this, this and this. If they can kind of figure out the puzzle first and say, right, actually maybe I need to change up my pre-match meal, whatever it is, then it's just a matter of guiding And then it just creates a much more, it's a better obviously for them, but it definitely creates that trust and rapport a bit more between you and the athlete as well. But it's a really useful tool that if anyone has never done before and they say, my gym sessions are quite poor, I'm quite tired, not even sport related, even if you have a 9 to 5 office job, you get an afternoon dip around 3-4 p.m. It's always super important to have a look at what you're having from that kind of noon till 2 p.m. window, and is there an area there that you could maybe switch up a bit.
Cool. And do you see, you mentioned before, you obviously had an athlete that you were talking to about like CBD and stuff, and I imagine that you get people coming to you about recovery all the time and things like that. And it just came to my mind, it might be no, the answer might be no, but is there any correlation between people who are like, oh, well, I've just bought a massage gun, I'm taking, magnesium and zinc every night, I'm doing this, I'm doing that, but they don't, and then you're like, oh, have you done a food journal, do you know what you eat? And they're like, oh shit, no, what's that?
Oh. Yeah,
is there like a strong correlation to that?
Yeah, a lot of the time I'll have kind of athletes say, right, what supplements do I need? And then say, you need to strip it back first and let's look at what foods you're having, because absolutely they'll have the massage gun, they'll do the ice baths, they'll do absolutely everything, but then they won't eat a proper meal post game. They won't kind of have proper hydration practices post game. They won't eat something before a game. And it's like, you're never going to really get to the level that you want to be if you're focusing too much on the kind of white noise. Yes, all those recovery tools are absolutely super, but from a nutrition perspective, if you aren't nailing your intake, if you aren't getting everything that you need from your diet and you're relying too much on the other stuff, then that's the first kind of hiccup. Absolutely. And I'd say not everyone now, but there, time to time, there could be for sure a correlation between people focusing too much on that sort of external stuff and not too much on the basics. Nutrition is such a simple concept that once you know the basics and once you nail the basics, it's really not that much else that needs to kind of be factored in. But it's educating people on that is the task. Yeah.
So like you mentioned then about sort of, the education and that, and sort of focusing on nutrition as being like, maybe not putting words in your mouth, but as like the foundation of sort of recovery and going on from there. If you could sort of imagine it as a pyramid, and like, let's say nutrition's the big block or one of the big blocks at the bottom, how would you envisage that pyramid? If you could, just for amateur athletes or general, like if it was just to sort of, I know it's not the case, but one brush covers all, how would you sort of depict that?
Do you want it from a nutrition perspective or from a recovery perspective?
Both. Let's go both.
Okay. Because nutrition, we have a pyramid of hierarchy of needs. So at the bottom, it's energy balance. Energy in versus energy out. So maintenance, surplus, deficit, making sure that you're eating enough calories for whatever level of sport you're partaking or not partaking in. Then it is macronutrients. So it's carbs, proteins, and fats. Next is, I think it is meal timing, or it's feeding frequency. It's one of them. I think it's meal timing is next. How often, the timing of the meals around the activity that you're doing. So fueling, recovery, feeding frequency, how often you're eating something like protein. Are you eating at regular intervals during the day? Are you having a huge protein breakfast in the morning and then having a huge protein dinner? Making sure that you're kind of nailing that frequency of nutrients coming in. And then at the top of the pyramid is supplements. Supplements will always be top, least important. And that is a really good graphic I use even with my youth athletes that I work with. Any sort of youth athlete presentations I do, I'll always use that pyramid, because it really signifies that if you're not doing everything upwards, if you're not kind of starting from the bottom, there's no point going straight to the top and what supplements do I need, because it is so much more than that. And if you can start nailing each level, then yes, absolutely, you get to the end, you're still not where you want to be. Do you need to supplement? Probably not, but you can look into that. But if you can say hand on heart that you're nailing everything up to it, then you're doing everything right from a nutrition perspective. From a recovery perspective, then, so from a kind of nutrition recovery perspective, again, it would be kind of energy intake would be the main thing. So directly post exercise, the first, I think people used to think there was this sort of anabolic window. Once you get your carbs in right away, and then once you get your protein in, thereafter, that is absolutely perfect. So energy intake, first of all, making sure that you're replenishing any glycogen loss, stuff like that. Then hydration, rehydrating straight away. Those two kind of go hand in hand, to be honest. And then as the recovery goes on, people kind of think, depending what time of the day the match is, but recovery will be a few hours post game, post exercise, whatever it is. And then I suppose it goes more so into sleep, making sure that you're getting enough rest every night is important before you kind of consider anything else. And then I suppose if it's kind of like a match day plus one, some sort of recovery tools that you can use is low activation, 20 minutes on a bike. If you are doing some sort of compression, so whether it's ice baths or those kind of compression sleeves, that you can get some sort of active recovery as well. And then it would be, again, supplements would be the last on the list. The main ones from a recovery standpoint would be your energy intake, your macros, hydration, and then sleep. They would be kind of the 4 key areas that if you're nailing them post-session, and not even post-session, but going into the next day. So if it's a Wednesday evening match, Thursday is a recovery day. And if you're not kind of bringing those elements into the next day. So typically on a Thursday, you would have a high protein intake, moderate carbohydrate intake, and making sure that you start to bring in stuff, maybe some micronutrients on that day to help with inflammation, help with recovery, and then any active recovery methods that you use. But also stuff that I'm starting to implement with athletes is 30 minutes of mindfulness, relaxation techniques, anything that works for them, doing a activity that they enjoy for 30 minutes, whatever that might be, is a really useful tool that you can use to kind of, like I said, if it is something like you played a match and maybe the score didn't go your way, being able to reset, let go of that and kind of go into the next phase of whatever performance it is with those tools. So I'd say they're the main things. I'll probably think something then when we get off this call, but off the top of my head, they would be the main things that I would be pushing on for sure.
That's brilliant, because I think you've just, even there's some sort of little trinkets there that you've mentioned about the day after, still being concerned about recovery the day after, because I still play, well, sometimes when I turn up, I play rugby occasionally now at an amateur level, and you see lads who you go and you play with them on Saturday, and then they're doing something else on Sunday, then they're going to doing the job on Monday, and by Tuesday they're like, oh, I'm still fucked, can't walk, I'm still like this, that and the other. And that was something that, again, I was guilty of when I was younger, like coming into my 20s and playing. But then literally you just need to be like, just recover and actually focus on that, not just doing nothing, because like you said, even if it's just jumping on the bike or doing some light stretches and things, that's going to speed things up tenfold rather than just being sat on the couch and thinking, oh, I'm not doing anything.
Like job's done. And I in fairness, when I was younger, I was a culprit for that as well. You play a game and you think, grand, I'll have something after, and then you think that's it. But it really, especially the older you get, it really goes into the next day. And it's really, if you're not kind of nailing those recovery practices on whatever match day plus one, the day after a game, then the older you get, the harder it is to recover from that session. But I think the way that the nutrition space is going, the sports nutrition space is going, the more teams that kind of understand that, it is a really positive thing that you can kind of build within a team. But yeah, I think you do see it a lot, that once an athlete has finished whatever it is competition, they say great job's done, and then the next few days maybe haven't been optimized from a recovery perspective. Like you said, you go to the week after of training and you're still a bit sore, you have DOMS, then it's like, right, what have you done between that time and that time to maximize it? And if it's not, like, if you kind of are doing it chronically for years, that's when we do see stuff like injury occur. It's quite hard to come back from certain injuries because of all this damage that maybe was done the years before of not properly recovering. But just the way the sports nutrition space is going, I think teams are really buying into it a lot more and understanding the importance of having a recovery protocol. Everyone's different. Everyone has different work commitments. But if you can initiate one for yourself and your own kind of whatever your own personal life is, then you'll see your performance go up tenfold, 100%.
Yeah, definitely. And I think even from, I've been playing rugby now since I was 11, and yeah, I can see the space changing from being much more educated to what it was. I mean, even concussion protocols which you brought in now, you know, you get
it's amazing,
get knocked out, you can't play for 2 weeks, and that's even at well, it's advised at an amateur level. There's people who ignore it, do you know what I mean? And the clubs try and put it in place, but it's up to them at the end of the day. But even to have that is brilliant. And now we're looking, you know, you have these recovery protocols, you have these things where, you know, they advise things to you. And again, I think we're going to get to a point, from my own personal opinion, just being around sports and amateur sports teams, where like in probably the next 10, 15 years, that even the amateurs will be, in comparison to what some are now and what they were 10 years ago, will be so professional in how they look after their bodies and stuff like that. And I think it's because of the sort of resources that are now available and the education that comes through, you know. I think it's through people like yourself and that, who started with that little interest and then just snowballed, and now we're in that position, and now you're sort of planting them seeds for grassroots to then go forward. And then that is how obviously we develop. It's compounding, isn't it, to see the growth. And is it rewarding? Like, I know that sounds stupid, but I speak to people sometimes and like, oh, it's a job. And I'm like, yeah, that's fair enough. But do you find it rewarding with people when you get them to where they want to be?
Absolutely. And it's the most rewarding stuff is the athletes that maybe didn't do anything before and they've made a small tweak. I had an athlete recently. They have early morning 8 a.m. sessions on a Saturday, never used to eat before, had a few chats, formal chats with them, and now every Saturday they fuel before their session, or they've started. And I had a chat with them recently and they said, yeah, had this beforehand. And that is rewarding because that means you're doing your job, you know? And I suppose as well, like it is building that culture. And that's something that I'm really, any sort of team that I work with, I'm always kind of there. I always try to build that culture around that. This is our recovery protocol. This is what we all know that we do, and we do it. And if you've been able to do that, if it's within a team, super, that everyone kind of knows that, right, job's done, we go home, we do this, we do that. That shows that you have done your job well. And if it's an individual athlete, absolutely, it's really rewarding, especially, obviously, a lot of people work off results. So body composition results. So I've lost however many kgs, my strength's gone up however much. But if you can change their behaviors, that's a huge thing in nutrition, is behavior change. And that is the main thing. And the only way you can establish that is by seeing the difference in themselves, but actively kind of engaging with athletes. But yeah, absolutely, it's a really rewarding role, especially youth athletes as well. It's great. It's really, really good.
And a nice segue into a question that I wanted to ask you is, you was mentioning then about how with nutrition specifically, you have to target maybe the relationship or the habits and the routines. And from your perspective, I just wanted to ask you, what would be 3 routines that you would, you know, advise to general population or an amateur athlete that you would recommend through your experience as, you know, an amateur athlete yourself, sports nutritionist working at different levels? Is there any 3 that come to mind that you would be like, these are the 3 that I think are?
Yeah. Well, I suppose number 1 is, if you're amateur, if you're high performance elite, if you're Gen Pop and you just go to a 6 a.m. gym class every week, what is your strategy around that? Do you have, now I would use the term high performance strategy, but in this case, what is your strategy around those sort of occasions, especially for an amateur athlete? What is the stuff that you do beforehand? What is the stuff that you do after, that you do week in, week out, that you say, right, I go to the gym on a 6 a.m. session, I have a bit of orange juice and a Nature Valley bar beforehand. Great. But that is your strategy that you use week in, week out. And if you don't have a strategy, how can you go about building one? The same as if you would have a high performance athlete or an amateur athlete, what is your fueling regime pre-session? And that's one of the first questions I always ask people that I work with, athletes that I work with. What is your strategy around your exercise? And if you don't have one, it can be really useful to develop one. Not even with sport, with everything though. What is your kind of 30 minutes in the morning? What is your strategy that you use every day to maximize that performance? And it's quite applicable to both high performance and then someone who just goes to the gym. What do you do before that to make those sessions matter and make you feel your best after those sessions? And if you don't have one, what can you do to develop one, and what are the kind of stuff that you need to develop one? So that is probably the first one, is develop a sort of performance strategy for yourself. The second one, I'd say, is so simple, but carry a water bottle with you. It's so simple, but the amount of people I talk to that I say, do you have a water bottle? Or they say no. And I say, how much water do you drink? And they say, oh, I might have a cup here and a glass here. Get yourself a colourful water bottle, because hydration, whether you're an athlete or not, hydration is so important. Get yourself something that's colourful that you can bring everywhere. Nick got me this, and honestly, it is probably the best present I ever got off anyone. Have that with you at all times and bring it with you everywhere. That's probably number two.
So important, hydration.
So important.
I mean,
yeah.
Nick should take a leaf out of her own book. I'm going to out her on the podcast. She is the worst for drinking water. But in it, I think it's mad that people are like, oh God, I've got like headache. You're like, have you drank anything today? And like, I've had 3 coffees. And you're like, well, fucking course you've got a headache, mate. Like, you've not had anything that's hydrated you for like 12 hours. Like, it's crazy. It's crazy. And the fact that we don't get like, we get taught that hydration is important when we're in school and stuff, but we don't actually get taught about how important it is. If that sounds completely stupid that I've just said, we get taught, but we don't really get taught. But it's true, isn't it? Like, you don't.
It's so true.
So many people overlook it.
Not even from a performance perspective, though, from a cognitive perspective, from everything, getting through a normal work day. How can you maximize that? And if you're kind of get to the end of the day, you're feeling headaches, dizziness, tiredness, a lot of that can be down to something as simple as hydration. People will laugh at you when you say that, but it is, a lot of people don't do it. And if it's a simple thing that you can start to implement every day, then absolutely. But yeah, that's definitely a second habit that I would get people to get into if they don't already. And the third habit I always get people to do, like, you hear people kind of say, oh, meal prep, but meal prepping can take a lot. And if you're a meal prepper on a Sunday, personally, I would never meal prep on a Sunday for 5 days in advance. I couldn't eat the same thing over and over again. If you are someone that struggles with kind of, you do great during the week, you get to the weekend and your whatever it is, your eating habits go out the window, you are just out of routine. I always get people to kind of split their week in two. So you say, right, Sunday to a Thursday, what are you going to do? What kind of meals are you going to have? If you're an athlete, if you're Gen Pop, what kind of stuff, if you're working a 9-to-5 office job, do you have access to kind of good, nutritious meals that you can get? If not, can you meal prep for that? And then I suppose the second block of the week, so that would be like your first work block. Second block of the week then is your weekend block. This is when a lot of people fall down on progress, social events come into consideration and stuff like that. If you can split your week into two and you say, right, my work block week is this, maybe my social block at the weekend. Now, this isn't for everyone. Everyone has different work schedules. For a lot of people, though, it's their social block is at the weekend. Is there anything that you can do around that social block to tailor it? If you're someone that enjoys going for a few drinks on a Saturday night, every Sunday you get a takeaway, you want to get out of that habit. Can you get yourself some ingredients, have them in a fridge on a Sunday that you're not reaching for that takeaway? You're getting stuff that you enjoy, but it's still nutritious and you're able to cook it from home and you're saving money. I think doing that is a lot easier than saying, prep your week from a Sunday onwards, and then you get to the Friday and you say, oh, sure, I want to go out tomorrow. Whereas if you can get to a Thursday evening and you say, I've however many social events this weekend, maybe I need to kind of, if it's from a calorie perspective, do you need to maybe bank a few calories a few days in advance, stuff like that. But I think it can be super useful having kind of a split regime for your week.
Yeah, a bit more flexibility.
Yeah, 100%, because it's like anything. You on a Sunday, you could say, right, I'm not going out next weekend. The weekend comes around and your friends say, oh, will we do this? Will we do that? You'll obviously probably have a better idea how your weekend's going to go come Thursday, come Friday. So if you can use that split regime, that if last minute social plans come up, whatever it is, that you can prep accordingly and you're not putting all this pressure on yourself at the start of the week. It's definitely
if anything's too rigid, it'll snap.
Pardon?
If anything's too rigid, it'll snap. You know what I mean? You need to have that sort of that fluidity with things, and I think that's ideal. What you've just said there, I think people will resonate with it and be like, oh, you know what? I try and do too much on Sunday, ruin the day that I try and relax before I start the week again, and then the wheels fall off.
Yeah, absolutely. People put too much pressure on themselves to have a big reset on a Sunday. That absolutely, it is an amazing day to get yourself set up for the week. But at the same time, don't put too much pressure on yourself that you need to have it all figured out how the whole week's going to go, because last minute things can pop up, work can go overboard, stuff like that, and you do have a better idea of the week as it progresses. So that's something that I always kind of recommend anyone I work with do, whether they're an athlete, whether they're Gen Pop, whatever it is, and it just allows a lot more flexibility, like you said, in the week.
Right, so I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit now. I'm going to ask you what I ask everybody is, what habit or routine would you love to reintroduce like you've done in the past, or habit or routine that you've never done that you would love to introduce, and what would it be if there was one?
Yeah, that's so good. Oh God. Habit or routine that I've done in the past. So I suppose what we kind of spoke about was the journaling, for sure. It's something that I used to do routinely at my master's, did routinely when I moved home. And I think maybe because I've settled back into my surroundings and moved back home to my house, that it's kind of maybe taken a bit of a step back because I'm in my usual surroundings. Definitely that. And then I suppose something I'd like to get into is, and Nick can even vouch for this, being a bit more disciplined in the morning, to get up, get my workouts done early in the morning. Because I am a morning person, and I think I need to discipline myself a lot more. That I say, right, I'm getting up at whatever time it is and getting my workout done, because it just means your block of work in the day is so much better when you have that early morning. It doesn't even need to be a workout, to be honest, an early morning walk. And I think I need to discipline myself a lot more in that AM slot. And whether that be linking in with a friend so they can keep me disciplined. But that is, yes.
Yeah, I love that.
That is definitely something I need to reintroduce, because I say, yeah, I'll get up. But that is probably, I am a morning person, but that is definitely an area that if I can nail that, it would actually maximize my workload throughout the day. And I know that. That's what I mean. It's just about reintroducing that.
I'm 100% the same.
Yeah.
100%. Have you ever read the 5 AM Club, the book?
No, I should though. Is it good?
Read it. Yeah, it's brilliant.
Really?
Yeah, I went through a phase probably due to Nick, because Nick does get up early and gets it done.
It's so good.
Yeah, and we was getting up where we'd go to our old gym before it closed, and we'd train at 6 every morning, and just the mood, the way you feel, sleep, your routine, just everything's, you always set the day off on the right foot. You know what I mean? Like the endorphins that come from it, and you don't have to worry about it. When you finish work, you can go home, you can actually relax, you can do things, you can fit in time for meal prepping, you can fit in time for seeing friends and family, things like that.
I know.
Because there's a lot of pressure on us to be fit and healthy, which rightly so. I agree that we should all be doing it. It's something that is only going to benefit us all in the long run. But if you can maximise your day and sacrifice getting up an hour earlier and getting that done, from my own experience, there's nothing better. And I am exactly like you, but unfortunately I'm not a morning person. I'm a right arsehole in the morning. And I have no shame in saying it. I don't say a word until about 7 o'clock. If I get up for train and I'm in gym for 5:45, I've not said a word until I leave afterwards. But no, they're two really good ones. But yeah, definitely read that. Definitely read the 5 a.m. Club. I think you'll get a lot from it, and it's pretty inspiring for that sort of routine.
I know. It's just the endorphins release as well in the morning. It's
massive.
Just sets you up so well. And Nick and I used to do 6 a.m. slots over in Liverpool. She used to get me up out of the bed. So that would discipline me to go. I'm terrible that if I don't have that discipline there, that I need it when it comes to early mornings. And then once I'm up, I'm up. So yeah, I'll definitely give that a read though. That sounds quite interesting.
Yeah. So before we go, I just thank you for coming on. It was super interesting. We've done 90 minutes, which I'm cautious of, and it's just flown by like they all do. But I could literally listen to you talk about it all day, so I might have to get you on again if you enjoyed it and you don't mind coming back. But before you go, do you just want to shamelessly plug yourself, tell people where they can find you and how they can get in touch if they want to?
Yeah, so you can get me on Instagram as Kavanagh Nutrition, TikTok as Kavanagh Nutrition, Gmail, kavanaghnutrition@gmail.com. Very original. But yeah, if you want to work with me, I have a link in my Instagram bio that takes you to I work for an online consultancy. If you're looking for one-on-one dietary advice, if you're a Gen Pop, you're an athlete, you're amateur, you're high performance, I work with absolutely anyone. So yeah, all my if you want to work with me, I have a link in my Instagram bio, which is
I will put that link in the description for the episode, and I'll tag you in it when we go on to socials and stuff. A massive thank you. Thank you for your time and that, and I'll catch you very soon. I hope you enjoyed.
Thanks for having me, Jack. Thank you.
No worries. See you later.
Bye.